Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
So welcome to the show, and today is Thursday. This is going out on Mintwave radio station. You can ask Alexa or go to the website karenrobertscoaching.com/mintwave-radio. If you ever want to listen in live or see the schedule for the rest of the week, this is purely for coaches, consultants, therapists and healers. So there are many other shows on our schedule, so check it out. So today's episode is 135, and today we have the lovely Brian. Now he is a subconscious mind reprogrammer. And today we're going to be talking about raising our vibrations by reprogramming the subconscious mind. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and we are just here to provide a platform for coaches and healers, really to get their message heard to the people who need to hear it. So Brian is really going to be helping you change your core subconscious self-limiting beliefs and experience the success that is possible regarding mind reprogramming, your whole belief system, reprogramming it to find success in life. So Brian, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Karen. It's awesome to be here. It's great to be on the show.
And if you'd like to share with the audience before we get sort of started on the topic for today, maybe share a little bit of your story, how you come to be doing what you're doing now.
Well, yeah, that really started probably back in 99, I guess. I was a college women's basketball coach, and I did that for like 12 years. And in the middle there, probably about 04, 05, somewhere, I was introduced to a man by the name of Bruce Lipton, who was big in this whole industry, and got the pleasure of hearing him speak, and just really connected with that and the subconscious mind and what it could do for my athletes. That was my main goal of coming out of there, because I knew I had great athletes because I recruited them all and stuff. But, getting into an end of the game situation or the pressure's on, anything like that, I could really see where some stood out and some really wanted to take the back seat and not even really be in the game. So I knew that was all in their mind, but didn't really know how to help them. And so after listening to Bruce Lipton and going to get some training done on a different modality that I use, I started working with all my athletes with that, not really pressuring them on anything, just who wanted to come in and find out. We just saw tremendous results right away, on and then off the floor, in their schooling and their home and everything. So that's where it really changed my mind, that it's really in our programming, and especially in our younger years of programming, that really causes us to fail or succeed. And so I just really got that out of my athletes, and then each time it just got better and better, and they just started coming to me with every issue you could possibly imagine with a 20-year-old female. And I'm like, all we can do is test it and figure it out, and see if I can help you. And like I said, things just changed drastically. Well, then I got involved more kind of in the business side, doing network marketing while I was still coaching. And once all the leaders and executives and people found out what I did with my athletes, they started coming to me with, their team members, their issues and problems, their self-limiting beliefs, what was holding them back. And that's where it really took off, where I just thought, wow, I could kind of see what my purpose was more to help a lot of people rather than to coach, 15 of them or whatever, and really dig into what people have going on so that they can start living a better life or whatever that is. And for myself also. So yeah, that's really where it really moved to. And like I told you earlier, that there was a time I was working with 60 to 80 people a week, one-on-one, and they were just
crazy
texting me, and it was all day long and every day. Granted that the money was good and everything was great, but you didn't have a life. And so I had to change some things, and now it's kind of evolved to where I am today. But I would have never been where I was at and where I'm at now without my athletes and without all those people coming at me, because it just, made a huge difference of what I got to experience, who I got to help, who I got to work with. So yeah,
Wow.
kind of in a nutshell, that's where I'm at from where I came from with
So
this.
it's quite interesting, isn't it? So from a very physical background, and I come from the fitness world, and sports therapists are very, all about the physical, fitting the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments,
Yep.
and it's quite funny that now we're starting to have this understanding that it's not just about, we can't just treat the physical. We are human beings, and there's the mental, the physical, the spiritual perspective of us all,
Right.
and they all, we all need to be in balance, don't we? So how did
Yes.
you, I mean, that must have been quite an aha moment, realizing that these athletes, it could be affecting their performance due to some kind of programming that they've had running in the background from childhood.
Yes. Yeah.
How did it feel to find that, when you had that aha moment,
And there were a lot of aha moments, and
and
that's
still
that's
are?
and I tell people that all the time. I said it's not going to maybe like change, like, oh, you're going to see the light now. It's going to be something like you normally used to do, and all of a sudden something changes, and you're like, whoa, that's different. And so that's what I saw, and just how they acted, and the other athletes around them could see it as an observer, and yet the athlete that it was happening to didn't even notice it until people brought it out, like their attitude had changed, or something had changed with them, that they had really, just started kind of doing something different. And I mean, there are so many instances, but I could really see it in, I mean, even in the ones that were like meant to be like the star, they just excelled that much better. But when they were coming to me with, not only did my basketball change, even my home life, that, they're miles away from their home, just what was happening energetic wise with their parents or with their brothers and sisters at home, talking to them on the phone or when they go home to visit or whatever, they could tell immediately that things had changed, that they were responding differently or being responded to differently. And that's where, the growth came in, and I could really see, like, well, yep, there was something that was so far back, maybe when they were 3 or 4 or 5, and they just were like, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is how my brothers and sisters treat me, this is how my other athletes treat me. And all of a sudden you see it all change, like they just lost that, whatever it was. And all of a sudden it just, so it opened them up and allowed them to really excel, just especially on the court in the basketball sense, since that's what we were really kind of our main focus was. But you could just tell they were growing as a whole person. They started attracting in even different people they were hanging out with, different friends, different, and they'd come and sit in my office, and they're just like, I don't really even know what's going on, but it's great. I don't know how this happened, but I don't even know how you did it, but it's great. I said, well, it's your mind, and so you're able, if you love that, then that's what you'll keep. That's what you'll want to continue with. Now, if something triggers you, yep, you can go back, and that's, we would work on things coming back on that were maybe really deep, and we had to really get into it. But it was just amazing experience to see, because 20 olds, they're just going to be pretty honest with you. They're going to say, things and say stuff, and this is what happened, and wow, I see a difference in this, and I, believe me, I was very skeptical about all this when I first started this. And so I felt, I kind of just felt like I was pretty level-headed, pretty easygoing. And when I just saw these changes, I'm like, wow, this has such huge potential, not just, in our basketball world, but in so many other worlds. So that's really what kind of opened me up to way bigger and better what was going to start happening.
Right. So it's not just having an effect on their performance, but it's having a knock on effect to their life as a whole and their relationships as a whole with family members or
True.
whatever.
Yes.
So, and I do think there's definitely a shift. People are, like you say, this has been around. This is nothing new, right? This is nothing
Right.
new,
True.
but more and more people are coming to understand it. And like you said there in the beginning, you may have been skeptical because, when people first hear this stuff, it is a bit of a, and I think I'm pretty open. I still, can't totally get my head around it all, if I ever will.
Right.
Is that the point anyway? Do we really need to fully understand how it works? But when we're talking about, because people talk about the conscious mind and the unconscious or the subconscious mind, but how would you explain the difference with this?
Well, being how all our programming and all of our emotions, everything that is stored in us is in that subconscious. A lot of times I describe it as when you drive a car. You know, when we first learn, oh, we got to hands here, we got to look both, we're looking everywhere. We got to turn it on, we got to put it in drive or reverse or whatever. And then, after a couple times, you're like, yep, you jump in, you start, you don't even think about what you're doing. But so how I explain where the conscious mind comes in, let's say you're going to the grocery store, driving the car, and it's automatic. You don't even think about it. You come to your stoplights or your stop signs and you kind of go through. And then you're like, oh, I got to stop at the post office first. That conscious mind can override the programming. The problem is that we can't stay in that conscious mind. The more we can stay in the conscious mind, the better we are. But it's
Mm.
very hard because we are so programmed to run our programs every day. And that's even like, you know, picking up our cell phone and jumping on it and scrolling for 20 minutes and you didn't even realize you were doing it. And you're like, okay, no, I got to get back to work. I got to do something. You don't even realize what your subconscious is programmed to do. And then the conscious mind steps in and says, well, now, wait a second, what are you doing? So
Mhm.
just think of, and we really need the subconscious just for, like I said, driving, walking. I mean, just think every day if you had to get up and learn how to walk again every single day, because that becomes programmed. And so that's what runs our whole system and our organs and everything. So if we had to learn that every day, we would never function. So we need it.
Mm.
But the problem is if you've been raised or taught or you observed negative things or things that don't serve you, and those are what's running the programs. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Oh, you're too young for that. You don't know that yet. You can learn that way later. Well, that shifts the mind to go, oh, then, it's not for me yet. I'm not supposed to do these things. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And so when you got that type of authority or whatever that you're listening to coming in, that subconscious becomes, and so now they get into their business world or get into school and college and whatever, and everybody goes, well, what am I supposed to do now? They're asking me to do other things than what I was trained or programmed to do. I'm supposed to do this by myself. I'm not supposed to have any help. Oh, I am good enough to do that. Oh, and I came across this with my athletes not being good enough. Them telling themselves over and over, even though they're now playing college ball, they came in and saw these other female athletes that were really good, and you could tell the ones that just, oh, I know I'm not good enough to play now. And so
Wow.
that's where we had to really reprogram that, because it just took them back to when they were maybe guarded by somebody that was pretty good, or just something in their life that said, oh, yep, you're right. Oh, my brother always beat me in basketball out in the driveway. I could never play with him. Boy, that girl's better than my brother. Well, I'll never be able to play with, you know. And it just, so we had to really dig in and find out where these things started, what happened. And so that's really the difference in that subconscious. It's really controlling everything for you, where consciously you can override it. But if you're not good enough to even talk to yourself consciously really good, then it's always going to go back to what you were programmed with and what you learned.
Yeah.
So that's what I deal
That
with
that
all the time.
That default set, and I think, you know, this is everywhere, isn't it? We all have come up with these feelings of, I'm not worthy, and again, I would have said, I would have argued that. I would have gone, no, I don't think that, because it isn't a conscious thing. It's
Right.
all working on the unconscious. So how do you, if you really think, no, I don't think like that. I'm sure I was, man, but it was all an unconscious program. How do you tell the difference between the two? Because if you're consciously not feeling that, how do you know?
Well, and you just said it right there. It's how fast you react to it and say, no, I'm not going there. And that's
Mm,
I even do that. I'll find myself, you're drifting off and you're thinking about whatever years ago and this and that, or something was triggered on TV and you're like, oh, I remember those days. And I'm like, nope, not going there. So if you can catch it quick enough, so the shorter you can keep that going in your mind, the better. The conscious overrides it and says, no, I'm not going there. I know I'm way better than that. Maybe that was my old story, but that's not my journey now. Where some
mm,
people that hear things or see things, or let's say they've been through abuse or something that's very traumatic, they can go down that road for days or weeks or months, and
mm,
they don't even know what's really triggering it. It might have been a movie they watched or something, but they just get way down there, and they, like, oh, I just can't get out. Oh man, I'm just, they're just thinking these thoughts because it's programmed to, that's where it's supposed to go. So when you get
mm,
really conscious and you're able to stop and go, no, 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 that was my old story. That's not me
mm.
now. I am better than that now. I have learned all this. This is why I went through all this training, or this is why I read all these books, or no, I learned some of these things. And so the quicker you can stop this thought process of the programming and override it. But there again, like I said, what's difficult
It's
is you also
it's when
sleep.
it's unconscious.
Yeah, it's
It's
when you
it's still
sleep
running.
too.
You might be in denial. You're
Yep.
just in denial.
Yep. And it is, and it's running while you're sleeping. You're not consciously going, "Oh, that's not me." And so then you got another, 6, 7, 8 hours of running that old program. So to get that all changed over, that's why it's so difficult. That's why most people stay in their patterns. It's very
Mm.
difficult until you get someone like me or myself to really be able to get in and change that programming around. And it, like I said, where I'm at, it can be done without even you having to stop and think about it and know it.
Yeah, but that's because you're just magic, Brian.
Yeah, it's magic.
Now
Yes,
we've had
you're
the
right. Yeah,
conversation
yeah,
before, right? And it's
yeah,
like I'm really quite fascinated. I mean, I love it. I love the this talk about energy and vibration, and I sort of, for me, it's a whole new journey anyway. But the whole thing is growing. Do you think that the whole consciousness? I think people are becoming more and more aware
yep.
that it is what it is, right? We are
Right.
we are energy.
They
Everything is
they
frequency.
that is true. And when you start talking about emotions, and the title of your whole podcast and everything, I knew it was going to be a real good fit, because I'm like, well, that's me. That's raising your vibrations with some woo woo in it. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. So, but when you take an emotion, and let's say fear, which is a huge emotion, and they throw fear into you, then that can also change the whole global consciousness to take you out of where, oh, I'm doing better, oh, things are better, my business is good, all that. Oh wait, and I don't even really like talking about it, even like the COVID thing, when that came up, that put everybody in fear, isolation, all of those things. And it really took them out of, well, I thought I was doing pretty good. Now I'm back
Mm.
into, oh, this world scares me. That's like a little kid. Like, oh, if you've been trained in any of that, like taught that, oh, don't go too far away, little Johnny, because the world's bad, then that all comes back, because that all gets triggered again. And so a lot of people get really down. They can't get themselves back out until it's almost retraining again. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is some things about where the global consciousness of it is getting better. People are getting kind of fed up with being controlled, so to speak, and they're trying to figure out their own ways. But yet, then they throw a loop in, and all of a sudden, so you really got to be able to stay conscious and really bring in yourself and go, okay, what's really going on here? I myself, yeah, maybe not be able to change everybody, but if each individual comes in and goes, I at least understand, I at least can watch it, I at least can observe it to where it didn't overtake me so much. Then, and that can be anything. That can be an athlete playing and being afraid of the situation or whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. It's how quickly you can stop and go, okay, let's look at this. Let's see where we're at, and not just react and go to where everybody else is going. Because usually when the whole crowd goes, that's not where you want to go. So you want to stay where.
That's my role. Go the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but most people will follow because they're hoping that somebody there will lead them, and that's why more people nowadays are looking for those leaders that will lead them in the better way, not so much
within.
Within,
isn't it? Just like we don't need these. We're always looking for this external force to come and save us.
Yeah.
And actually, really, what you're saying is, man, you can sort it all out yourself. It's your own vibration.
It's all
you
inside.
can do your magic stuff and clear their energy.
That's what I said. Even me, as helping someone with their energy, it's still within them. It's still them. They can change it all back right away if they don't ever want to be more than what they want. But most people come to me because they want more. They want to be something else, or they want to be able to contribute more. They don't want to hide in this shell. But you're in control of yourself and the inner worlds. And so if you're ready to move that and shift that, then yeah, you're right. It all comes from within into the outer world. So it's it just depends on how you take it. Yeah.
So share with the listeners a little bit about how you work and who you specifically work with, and what is the woo-woo that you get up to, Brian?
Oh boy.
Where do we start?
Yeah, exactly. So mainly it's obviously in the subconscious and in the programming. Who I worked with, I've worked with pretty much everybody and their dog, the moms, the kids, the pets, the whatever, when something's wrong or something hurts or whatever. And then it kind of moved into more executive CEOs. I've always said this, everybody comes to me for money. They want more money. They want to know how to make more money, but it ends up changing their whole life, because when you start uncovering why their money isn't working, or why they even want more, even if they're making a lot, but they want more, you start getting into those emotions and those vibrations that are holding them back. And all of a sudden they just become more and greater. And yet when they're done, they're like, well, it's funny. I always wanted more money, but now I want, a better life. I want to be happier. And they think the money's going to make them happy. It's not always the money. So there's a lot there. So getting into that in the subconscious it's kind of like taking, positive statements that we read in books and all those things, and you sit there and repeat it over and over and over and over again, and hoping that it starts getting into the subconscious. Well, that's where, with the 2 or 3 modalities that I use, I can get directly into that subconscious. And I mainly use, I'm going to lose the train of thought of what I was going to.
You've got a back door into this.
Well, yeah, but I was just going to, how I test it, and I just literally lost the word of it. But so I can literally go or bring your energy into me, and all your issues and problems come up for me. And so when you do this, and I'm sorry, the word was muscle testing. And so when I muscle test, so when I have your energy into me, I am completely out of the situation. So I am able to tell when you're weak on something or strong on something. So I get people that, will come to me and say, oh, no, I totally believe in this. And I'm like, well, all your muscles and all your organs and everything don't think that. That's why you have such a conflict going on with you want all this, but you're actually thinking this. And so you can't, this is the gap that's happening. And so when you can redo the subconscious by the muscle testing, and like I said, there's a couple different ways to do it. There's different positions you can even put the body in, but I mainly go off because I do everything by remote now, changing the thought or the statement that is weak. Everything goes back to a certain statement, like I am worthy, I am not worthy. If it's weak, I am not worthy, everything tests weak for being worthy. I can change that by doing different things within the modality, and that's using like belief points and different body positioning and things like that to make that all strong again back into your subconscious instantly. And so
Wow.
then, and I can test all of that, while they're right there. And so then they're like, oh yeah. So somebody will call and say, or text me and say, oh, my back hurts. Oh, my lower back's killing me today. I said, okay. And I'll balance it. I'll bring in the energy. I'll see exactly what is causing the problem. I can tell them when it started, whether it was, 2 days ago at noon, or I can tell them, well, this is, 20 years ago when you deal with it, something triggered it. And now and so once they start thinking, they're like, oh, 20 years ago. Yep. Okay. So now you're kind of dealing, when I talk about like a lower back, you're talking about second chakra, you're talking about love and money. So I can tell them exactly, well, it's something to do with love, something. Well, yeah, 20 years ago is when I went through my divorce. So they immediately, and they could have been watching a show that was something on divorce. I mean, these are just all examples, but it triggered that lower back and the brain to send signals that there's pain there, and all of a sudden they start having all these pains. And so when I
Wow.
go in and take out that weak statement of whatever it is on love or whatever that is on relationship, something along those lines, or it could be grief, loss, something. Once that comes up for me and I balance it to be strong again, and I send them a text back and they're like, oh yeah, it's gone now. It's perfect. It's great. Thanks. And they're
Wow.
off and running again. So
So is that because the body doesn't lie, I suppose? So all these emotions and if you're asking yourself a statement, yeah, the body. That's why I suppose it is the link between the mind, the body, and the spirit, because you might be saying something, but it's in contradiction to actually how your body's feeling.
yeah, to what's actually programmed there or the signal it
Mm,
sends when it gets triggered. And so,
right.
I mean, it's no different than making something that's a recipe. If you don't put the right ingredients in it, you're going to get something different in the end. So if you're used to, baking a cake a certain way and you want it to come out a certain way, but let's say you were taught wrong how to bake it in the first place, but that's how you learned it, and somebody comes along and goes, "Well, that's not what you put in the cake. That's not right." You know, those you're supposed to have eggs and whatever, not this, and you're gonna get a different result. And so it's like they were programmed to get whatever this pain at some point in their life, and now they keep getting it every time it's triggered. And some people just live through it, and they're just like, well, that's me now. I've got the pain, and my doctor told me you're always going to have this nagging
Because
pain.
my age,
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
got
Oh,
to
I'm getting
expect
old,
that
and
because you're
so
getting
everything
older.
everything starts falling off or falling apart or whatever. And and I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You can be. That's why some people are just as young as they ever wanted to be. They have an age in their mind. They're 35, and their body acts like it. They go work out, they do all this, and they're 60. But you get a 60-year-old that thinks they're 75, and
Mm.
things are not working right. Things are off, and so it's totally everything's triggered by how that mind thinks and how you were programmed. Now, I don't mean you woke up one day and like, oh, I'm just going to think I'm old now. It's literally what you've watched your whole life because your mom or dad's always sat there and go, oh, I got all these aches and pains. I'm older now. And so that's exactly what you're supposed to think. You don't even have to think it anymore. The program's there.
Mm.
So you have to change the programming that's in there, because then I always get this, oh, it's hereditary. I have this bad knee because my dad had the bad knee. He was hurt in football, but now I have it because I'm like, okay, yeah. Does that even make sense when you're telling me the story?
Yeah.
No. And
That
so,
that happens a lot though, doesn't it? People have
yes,
almost, again, I suppose, again, that's the mental, it's the expectation
Yep.
that, oh yeah, because my mum had this, or I'm prone to, and we now know that there's very little actually, or
Very
that with
little.
these all these so-called genetic links, it's
Yep.
more so, could be a combination, I suppose. Maybe the common foods that you've been brought up with, so you're eating the same things, and the things that you keep hearing or have been hearing over and over and over. And yeah, like you say, it's none of this is a one-time thing. It doesn't happen overnight, but I suppose the combination of the consistent daily
Right.
things that
Yep.
people are listening to, and
If it's a huge trauma, it can happen overnight. I mean, if it's something that really hit you hard and you just are devastated, or whatever it is, it can happen overnight. It can literally change the cell structure and everything, that because your belief system isn't. But once you're on your belief system, and if you've got a really good belief system, or you've been working on it to change things and it's getting better, then it's a lot easier to move those over to even more positive things. And I always say this with people, like, you're really good at maybe two or three things. Like if I said, basketball, and they're like, oh yeah, I can play basketball pretty well. Golf. Well, yeah, I'm a pretty good golfer. Wrestling. No, I'm not going to beat anybody in wrestling. So there's always like things that people can do really well. And like baking. Oh yeah, I can bake anything. I can throw it in the oven. Everything's great. All this. And then, well, construction work. No, don't get me working on my house, because somebody has to come finish it. So there's always those things that they're really good at, and then they know it's however it is. Now, if you say to yourself at the construction level and say, well, you know what, but I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to get better at it. I'm going to paint. I'm going to do this. And then the brain goes, oh, so I can kind of do this. And it kind of moves up and says, oh, see, I'm not as bad as I thought I was. But once you bury yourself and go, no, not good at that, I don't ever want to have to do that, it shuts down that whole part, which could be your creativity. It could be anything. And that could be locked into your chakras. It could be locked into organs that hold all these stresses and all of these things. And all of a sudden, now you're dealing with it every time it gets triggered. And so
right.
that's just the power of the subconscious. It really is. And
it likes to be right, doesn't it? I suppose.
Oh, yep. Yep, that is
likes
so
to be right.
true.
So we've got to be so careful how we talk to ourselves. It's funny. It's my own daughter. She sometimes she'll say things, and I'm like, be careful what you say, darling. Be careful what you, because that's not a truth. That's not a truth. And I suppose a lot of the times, even when we say in jest.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just joking.
And we can almost say the negative. Us Brits, especially, we're very sarcastic.
Yeah.
It's a sarcastic humor, but that's not a good thing, because even if you're saying it in jest, it can still have an effect on the body, can it?
Oh yes. Well, and
yeah.
the reason probably why you're saying it in jest is because way back at some point, whoever you might have learned it from or observed them doing it and say, oh, it's okay, it's fine, I can keep saying this and doing this. They were either hiding something, not wanting to admit something, not wanting to do that, or you are. And so, but now it's just part of life. That's why I said, now it's just, well, this is just me. I'm sarcastic, and I am too. I get it. So then I will sit down and go, why do I say these types of things? And I'll go in and balance myself. I'll go in and say, oh, this happened when I was younger. So it was like maybe trying to cover for being inadequate, wasn't as good as somebody else that was there, or somebody in school. A lot of things happen in school when you're younger that has the whole control on how you're programmed and everything. And so I start finding these things, and I'm like, okay, yep, that needs to be changed. Okay. And so I'll start working on that. So but you're right, on the face value of it, if you keep telling yourself something that you're just joking, but in the subconscious, it doesn't care if it's right or wrong. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference. If it's there and said, it's programmed, it's going to keep doing it and keep sending the same signals until you change that over again. And
so when you work with people, you can change it instantly.
Instantly. because that's what, well, and where, so this is the difference between men and women. I can tell you this because, and this could be a little sarcastic, by the way. So my, I have a lot of women that are clients, and that over the past years, because I've always said they're way more open. They want things to be changed or fixed. Like, oh God, if that's not right, fix it. Where a guy is so good on being set on their ways that they're right, whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. And so, but for when I have a guy that's a client or is very, not sure of this whole woo woo thing and everything, but they've got pain in the body and the pain in the body goes away, they're like, huh, that's interesting. Okay, maybe there is something true to this thing. Where a woman, you could change, you could change one little thing in the mind, and they're like, oh yes, I feel that. I feel so much better. Oh my gosh. I'm telling everybody about you. They just have a different sense of where a guy is very guarded. And I always say this goes back to caveman stuff, where they're supposed to produce the money and the security and the food and everything, where the women takes care of the kids and all this. It's still all in that subconscious. That's why you got women taking care of all these people and all these things, and guys are over there going, I'm good, don't mess with me, I'm
but
fine.
that is why I think men are under more pressure, actually,
They're under
because
tremendous
of
pressure.
this. And this is why I think so many men have actually suffered more throughout the madness of what happened. We won't even mention it.
Well,
don't say the name.
Right,
but
exactly.
I feel that it was actually the guys that really, really suffered, because maybe it is because of societal pressure or whatever. They've got to be, they're doing this, and all of a sudden life has changed, and maybe they didn't know how to open up and be honest about what's going on, and they're the ones that really struggled with it.
Yeah, when it stays inside and you can't, and you don't even want to know, you don't want to work on it, you just keep it there. That's why you see all the old ladies out for coffee and there's one guy sitting there. I mean, they all lost their husbands, and he did something different, that he lost his wife, or whatever. I just see it all the time. I'm like, there's women all over the place going for coffee together, and all the guys are gone because of stress levels and everything that they take on. I always say their stress levels are so much higher, and the women have thousands of little ones. Because they worry about every little thing, the big things.
Right.
But it has shifted where the women are now working way more in the how many ever years ago in the job
which
force.
may be not necessarily a good thing. I do think that some females where they've gone into the male arena, not that and I get it. You do what you love, whatever suits you. However, the pressures put upon them, they're not designed to, even more so to have, like you say, the guys are going back to the cavemen days, that was their sort of role.
Right.
Women, not so much. So actually going into these arenas where the pressure is even more, we're not designed to have so much cortisol in your body. And do you think that's having an effect on people's overall health?
All day, every day. And there's always consequences to getting out and, having your rights or whatever, and getting more rights and doing these things. But then they also suffer, and the kids suffer, because when we were used to having the mom at home and always being that nurture, that's really changed the kids that don't have that anymore. And then the father's dying early or whatever happened because of the stress. They don't have that figure in their life as much anymore. So it's really changed society, but there's also a lot of good things too. I mean, to be able to be independent.
It's balance, isn't it, Brian? We've gone too far one way. It's like, whoa, hold it, pause.
Yeah. And the whole body and the whole mind was never meant to handle all of this stress. If you're in religion or anything like that, and it's always said that, put all your issues and problems in God's hands. There's a reason why. Because your body and mind was not meant to handle the stress. And when you start handling the stress, that's when you got, the cancers and the issues and the diseases and everything that goes up, because the body's not, it's an energy. you take away the energy, you unplug something and it doesn't work anymore. That's literally what you're pretty much doing to your energy of your body, or all the electrical things that go through your body as they get knocked down and knocked out because of stress and everything. It, it's it, I'm not surprised at where we are
Yeah.
nowadays.
It can be totally turned around, can't it?
Yeah, it can totally be turned around. Yep, totally. Yeah, like you said, it might have some consequences, it might have some things change, and you might not always like the change individually, but and they always say you can have everything you want, but when you lose your health, it don't matter what you have anymore. You'll sell everything you got to get your health back. Because if
Which
you're
is
not
what
here with
what
your
seems
health,
to do.
yeah, if you don't have your health, you can't enjoy the stuff you got anyway. So
Yeah.
it really is. So if you can manage it with it, and that's really where like I come in, because a lot of the executives and CEOs and things that I've worked with, they're like, I mean, they literally say, "You just fix it. I'm not work. I mean, I can't. I don't have time to work on this. You fix it. I'll hire you to fix it." But as they get better, and as the subconscious gets better, they start becoming more aware, and then they want to know. Well,
Mm.
yeah, I'm feeling better, and I feel I'm thinking better. So what do I need to do for myself more? And, at first they were like, I don't want to care. I don't even care. Don't even tell me. And now it's shifting because their mind shifting. They're getting rid of the garbage in
Mm.
there so that they can move out and move forward. And, it starts coming back to happiness and to joy, which is up on that emotional scale rather than down into fear and anger and all of those other things that are causing them to stay in that. Once those start disappearing, and they start moving, how do I get more joy then? I have some joy.
I'm
How
quite
do I?
enjoying this.
Yeah, I'm
This is
enjoying the
actually feels
joy.
good. Can I have
Yeah,
more of it,
yeah, can I
please?
have more of it? Yep, that's exactly right. And so then they start working on, maybe I don't have to work as hard, or maybe I don't have to put in many hours. Their mind actually starts thinking because it opens up and clears when you get all this other crap out of the way, that they can start. And this is moms too. I mean, this is everybody, but it's
Hmm.
easy to talk about an executive or a CEO that's overworked in the corporate world or whatever. And once those things start going out of the subconscious, it's been causing the problems or causing you to stay stuck or not being able to move forward like you would love to. And, I hear this all the time. Oh, I'd take more trips, or I would go do this if I had the money or the time. Well, you have to change something to get the money and the time. You can't keep doing what you're doing and expect it all to change. Same thing with the mind. You have to change some things in the mind so you can start thinking a different way, so you can start having those things. But then, if you really truly want them, some people
Mm.
say they want to do all this, and then
But
they're
they
they're
don't want
bet
to change.
they're better off in misery. So they have something to complain about. I've
Yeah.
had people like
Oh
that.
yeah,
I said,
I think I've met a few like that.
exactly. And then they're like, well, what do I have to complain about? Nothing. Go enjoy life. I mean, this
Yeah.
is what it's about. It's not about complaining, and like,
A
well, my
world
mom didn't
without
teach me that. She
complaining. I'm
taught me
sure
how to
there's a book
complain.
out there called that. Yeah,
Yeah,
World Without Complaining.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, come on, man. It doesn't have to be like that. So you love working with more executives, CEOs. What's your sort of real
I mean,
what's the
athletes,
big
things like
sort of
that, because it's,
transformations that you like to see?
oh boy. I mean, well, if you go through all the moms that I've been through, just on that aspect, because moms don't care about themselves; they care about their kids. Well, let's help. My kids got this. I said, well, they're watching you, so you must have some things. Well, don't worry about me. Let's just help the kid. I mean, I've worked on so many things. Kids not sleeping at night, because they take on, just like our pets, they take on the stresses of what's going on, and but you don't even realize it. The subconscious is, it's not their conscious mind going, mom's stressed more, maybe I should take on some of her stress. The subconscious automatically takes on that, and so they don't sleep as well. So I've worked on that. Just off the top of my head, I remember having a, I think he was 2 or 3 years old, and the mom and dad could not figure out why he was getting these blotches and eczema, psoriasis all over his body. And so when I went in and tested, I'm like, okay, this is with the dad about 10 years ago, and the kid's only 3. and under tremendous amounts of stress. Oh yeah, he lost his job. He went through all of this. This is still there energy wise. And the kid now that came out 7 years later was having
Yeah.
all of the issues from whatever was going on 10 years ago and what this dad was going through. So when we cleared all that out, all the eczema was gone. The kid didn't have any problems anymore. And
Wow.
so, I mean, that's, yeah, see, so that's looking at something physical that was coming out of the kid. But just think what happens to the organs that you don't even get to see. It's not coming out of the body, it's just happening on the inside. So there's always
Yeah.
stuff that needs to be balanced, and just because of everything going on. The moms of I worked in the, with network marketing, worked in the business world so much with a lot of moms that were trying to build something better for their family. They always say, "Oh, I want to retire my husband and have a better life for my kids." That's just what they say. And so we would work on so many things, and just stuff in the household, the relationships, the self-esteem stuff, because so many, I mean, not every mom was built to start running a business. They were,
Mm.
I mean, I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying they were
Mm.
built on raising their kids. That's what they observed. They observed their mom doing this. And so then they're like, well, I want to do this. Oh, but I'm really shy, and I don't like to talk to people. And I'm like, well, network marketing is about talking to people. I mean, and so then when you start changing why they are shy, why these things are controlling the subconscious, all of a sudden they're like, well, I made 4 phone calls today. I would have never done that. And they just get better and better as it goes. I'm not going to say they're going to be a superstar overnight, because there's so many things that need to be changed in that subconscious that they were programmed with, or they watched their mom do. So it's over time things are changing. But that was
Wow.
in the mom area and things like that, or dad. A lot of moms try to fix the dads, and the dads don't realize that they're being fixed. But that's
Brilliant.
and so I've had that a few times. But then when you get into executives and CEOs, anything in the business world, most of them are making good money. I mean, that's not really their complaint, even though they would love to have more so they could buy more or whatever. But they really, when you dig down into them, and they're like, I want to be happy. I want to be, I want to have this fulfillment in life. I feel like I'm just going to work and doing this for the family, but yet I'm not fulfilled. And when you start finding out what's blocked or whatever, so they don't have fulfillment, and that starts opening up, they start, it's kind of like a Pretty Woman, where he's all doing this and she's trying to talk him into relaxing, going to the park, taking some time off, and then he kind of opens up and does the right thing with the guy he was merging the business with, and they're going to work
Hmm.
together. It's kind of like all of that. It's taking this rigid into softer, but yet it opens them up, and it helps them way more in the business world, because
Right.
it helps bring in energy of better relationships, better people skills, better things with other people coming into their business, their working relationships with people. You name it. And that's where we go back to the aha moment. They're like, well, I wanted this fixed, but man, I'm noticing all this stuff over here is
Ah,
changing. And I'm like,
right.
yeah,
There's
that's
sort of
all
two
connected.
ways. It's like hearing what you're saying there. It's almost like the guys, everyone says that they want more money, and I agree that it's never about the money. When you
No,
actually
yeah,
dig in, it's
right,
never
yep,
actually about the money. So, but the ones coming to the money, they want that solved, and then it's having a knock on effect to everything else. And it sounds like then the mums are coming for the other things, and then you're clearing that, and they're having a knock on effect to the money. It
right.
all works together.
It's all
And do
connected.
you
Yep.
think that, so a lot of sort of resistance I get, so if I'm working with a lot of people that are healers and therapists, because they're very good at giving, they're not so good at receiving, but they have this mental block about money, because again, they envision it, it's almost like we don't want to talk about money, and having money is bad in
It's
some
bad.
way. Do
Bad.
you
Yep.
think that's sometimes some of the sort of the block, because money's just energy, just like anything
That's
else? And I would say,
that's right.
well,
When you got
if
that
you're
negative,
helping more people, you're going to make more money. So how would that be a bad thing?
right,
Actually, it's a
but
good thing.
it actually probably stops them from bringing in even more people, because they have a
Yes.
negative connotation of the money. Well, if I make too much money, well, then I look bad. I look greedy.
Yes.
Whatever they were taught. See, they were taught all this. That you don't wake up or you don't born one day and go, oh God, I hate money. There's something there that because they didn't have money, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, so don't even ask for any. We all hear these
Mm.
things all the time. The other thing with that is that when when that, like you were saying, when that starts opening up, and when you were talking about, because I've worked with other healers and stuff, and you're exactly right. They're like, oh my gosh, you either charge too much, or how can you sit there and make all this money and do all this? I'm like, if it wasn't there for the people, if you weren't there for the people, they wouldn't pay it. So you'd be back to where you were, or you'd be shifting something else. So I always go with, when you just said the giving and the receiving, I give them the example of, you've got this little kid, it's Christmas time, whether it's your nephew or niece or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what they've been asking for. I'm going to get them this present, and they're gonna love their uncle. Oh God, I'm gonna be this special, or their aunt, whatever. And they get the present and they open it up and they're like, oh, I didn't I didn't want this from you. I wanted, I thought mom would get me this, or Santa was gonna bring me this. And not and so when you as the giver and you see the receiver not receiving, that's you not receiving the money, not
Mm.
receiving, because everybody wants to give. Everybody's like, oh, I got to give more. I got to do this. I'm like, you got to receive more. The only way you're
Mm.
going to open up to be able to give more is to receive more. So I don't care what you do with your money, but if you're not getting a big pile of money, you can't help anybody. You
Mm.
you you can't give back to people or organizations or schools or anything. You got to look at it where, okay, I'm going to take it all and I'll make it again, but I'm going to give it all up, because there's your giving again, but you had to receive it to give it, or otherwise the flow's not there. So people won't come back
Yeah.
to you if you're not willing to receive it. They're like, well, they
Right.
didn't take that very well. I'm not going there. And
Mm.
that's subconscious. They just won't. Just like when people look at people, oh, they will make a lot of money. Well, you're already out. You can forget it. You
Yeah.
you got to be grateful for those people that went out and made all the money, that did the
Yeah.
work, sacrifice, whatever, because that's the only way it flows. It'll flow back to you, and then you can flow it out to somebody else. You can't
Right.
be sitting there, you know, being negative about money when that's literally all we have for bargaining. I mean, yeah,
Yes.
I guess you can give 3 apples for an orange or something, and you know, I mean, I don't know. You can
Yeah, it's the
exchange
way
things,
that we have at the moment, right or wrong, but there
right?
it does feel like that's their block, that's their
Oh,
issue,
it's a
is
huge
that
block.
you're not.
Yep. And now
Yeah.
now you go back to their childhood, and I can tell them exactly how many years ago it was, what happened, and then what to do to correct that and get in and change all that, so that they have, it's just literally a bigger heart. They got the
Right.
block on about receiving money, because they might look bad to somebody because they care about what other people think of them. That's now they're into the judgment. Now they're into not forgiving. So I always say the three biggest things are love, forgiveness, and gratitude. Their gratitude's cut almost to nothing because they don't want to receive money. That is gratitude,
Mm.
letting it come in and being grateful that people are willing to pay you to do something that you love to do. Oh, now you don't love that because you don't love money, and you start seeing a lot of blocks coming in when I've
Wow.
worked with people about that, because their whole mindset, and they're like, well, yeah, I know exactly who I learned that from. When I would ask
Yeah.
for money when I was a little kid, my dad would say, no, we don't have money. You go out and earn it. You
Yeah.
go work an honest couple hours, and
Yeah.
I'll give you money. And and nowadays it's not like that. Not the honest. I mean, I get on the computer and yeah, you can make some money. That isn't honest. They mean go out and dig a ditch, or go
Yeah,
plant some
sure.
flowers, and yeah, then sure,
So
I'll give
that
you.
can all be cleared. So
That
for
can all be
for the
cleared.
listeners out there, how do they find Magic Brian? I'll just my my new name for you.
Yeah.
How do
Well,
they come
obviously I
and
got to
work with
change my
you,
name so you
Brian?
can find me now. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm pretty much on everything between. I do a lot of my stuff on LinkedIn because that's in the business area, and that's Brian Radke. I don't know if you post all that or whatever.
Yeah, well, all the details will be, but for the listeners, because all your if people are watching this, they'll have all your links beneath. But if people are just hearing this, how do they find it? Brian Radke, and how do you? It's RADKE. Is that right?
TKE. RAD
TKE.
TKE.
Sorry, I got it wrong.
No,
TKE.
Right. Yep. Brian
Radke.
Yeah, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, like I said, LinkedIn, pretty much anywhere you can put YouTube, because I do a lot of videos there and kind of explain a lot of these things, or go through some examples of some people, what they've had. And so people are, because a lot of times they don't, that's why I didn't want this to be a science thing, because people are like, oh, great. But, that's how the cells work. And I'm like, no, I want it to where you are sitting there going, oh my gosh, I didn't know somebody could actually help you with that. And so then it really opens the mind to being like, there's answers.
It's all solvable. See, that's what I've got from you, is everything, actually. And I would say, I'd go, this is, and like you say, you're working on one thing, that means you're working on everything. So this isn't just about making money. It's not just about relationships. It's not just about your health. The whole lot, clear the energy, and it's all going to have a knock-on effect to absolutely everything.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Awesome.
Love it. Love it.
Thank
you so much for your time today. I could speak to you for hours.
And I can speak for hours.
So if anybody, please get in touch if you're feeling stuck. And so that goes for both sides of it, not just the execs, but even a lot of the healers, the givers, you've got some blocks going on there. It is okay to earn money from your skill set if you're going to be giving, and that's how I always just think there's going to be a block of flow of energy. If you can't just keep giving. You've got to be able. That's the rule of the universe, isn't it? So forget the money side of it. The money's just how we do get paid.
Yep.
But fascinating conversation. Love it. Love what you're doing. So thank you for your time today. All the best. And to the listeners, I will be back on Monday. So have a wonderful weekend. See you on Monday. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks, Karen.
Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.